All right, Susu, we are live.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to PIN, Parent Information Network of Cherry Creek School District, here today on the first day of December. We would like to thank all of our sponsors that you see in front of you who have decided to support PIN as we bring to you live and later presentations via Zoom. The Nectar Group, In-Depth College Impressions, Happy Canyon Flowers, Chile Camps, and our newest platinum sponsor, Sandstone Care Substance Abuse Treatment Center. We thank all of you for without your support, it would be very difficult for us to continue doing what we're doing, especially during these times of staying at home, having presentations on the computer instead of in our great big beautiful room over at Fremont, which hopefully we'll be able to do in 2021. Before we get started with our featured speaker of Rachel Kodanaz, turning 2020 losses into 2021 gains, we brought to you today two of the representatives from the security department in CCSD to give you a little information about what's going on in the district related to safety and security. We have with us Corporal Sarah Joswick, who is going to share some information, as well as Ian Lopez, the new Director of Security for the district. If any of you have any questions for them, as well as later on for our speaker, please utilize the Q&A at the bottom of the screen. You can type anything in there, and some of our board members that you see right now will be happy to monitor that and bring that to our speaker's attention. So Sarah, Corporal Sarah, you are welcome to take the floor and share with us some of what you see or have seen.
Okay, thank you very much for having me. I'm Sarah Joswick. I work for the Greenwood Village Police Department. I'm a corporal, which is a supervisor, and I'm assigned to the School Resource Officer Unit. We service Cherry Creek High School and the feeder schools that come into that. So two middle schools, two elementary schools that come into that. We have a sergeant, a corporal, and 5 officers that service this area. You know, this year has been very different, obviously, for everybody. Even in person, it's been a very, shall I say, quiet year for us in the school as far as our role. And, you know, our role is quite a few things. We're here to support administration with anything that they need as far as safety and security goes. And we're here first and foremost to support the students with any safety or concerns that they might have. You know, we've seen a lot of, not a lot, but a fair amount of mental health related incidents this year, just the stress that, you know, we all feel, the kids feel it too. I know you, with your students, you probably see it. So we don't just deal with crime and safety and that kind of thing. We also deal quite a bit with the mental health realm of things as well, and partnership with the school psychologists and social workers in providing resources for kids. You know, as far as, while we've been on remote, the biggest thing we've seen is like cyber safety and bullying type stuff. We get a Safe to Tell, if you're familiar with that. We still get quite a few Safe to Tells that come in with concerns about, as you can imagine, just like we have bullying in person, we have bullying online at all age levels. So those are kind of the things that we're focusing on right now. While we're on remote, we do still have, I'm still dedicated to the schools. So I am in my office each day and available for anybody that needs anything. And then we have one other officer that's assigned to a middle school that's still full-time assigned to the schools. So you still have our presence, even though We don't have the kids here. We do still have staff and administration and whatnot in the building. So we still take the safety and security of the buildings very serious. I think that's kind of a good overview for me. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them as far as law enforcement side. Oh, I guess I will add, Cherry Creek School District does comprise of 4 law enforcement agencies. So it's Greenwood Village, the Arapahoe County Sheriff's Office, the Aurora Police Department, and Cherry Hills Police Department. And everybody is just assigned, we cover the schools that are in our jurisdiction. So quite a few SROs out there.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah, for helping us understand that a little bit better and understand your scope. Ian Lopez, would you like to add any information about that would help us further understand what's going on?
Sure. Again, thanks for having me this morning. I appreciate the time. I'm Ian, the new Director of Safety and Security for the district. As I used to introduce myself, I'm the new Randy Council. So Randy had been here for about 11 years. So I get to fill in some pretty big shoes that he had. A little bit about myself. I'm a retired police commander from the city of North Glen. And when I got the opportunity to come here, I brought with me that experience. I spent a lot of my time in patrol and tactical response experience to the district. And one of my big pushes here is to get a lot of our procedures streamlined so that we're more in sync with our SROs and our law enforcement responders for all the different types of things we respond to on a daily basis and the big potential things you could respond to in larger emergencies. So that's been our objective. Since I've gotten here, we're trying to put things in place at the district level and then have all that stuff trickle down and migrate down to the building level so that we can build a more consistent, centralized approach to security versus having a lot of building independent decisions being made about security protocols. A couple new things we've introduced this year. One is the standard response protocol. We've adopted that by the I Love You Guys Foundation, which gives us 5 basic emergency actions that we take for the majority of the things that we do in the schools. That's a big push for us. We haven't really had the opportunity to drill it and announce it and train it that much simply because of the COVID restrictions and having limited number of students and staff in the buildings. So that's going to be something that you'll see more of as we get our students back and we start to push that information out. So we're still in the process of implementing that whole entire adoption throughout the district. In terms of SROs, wanted to just share with you because it often comes up is, where are SROs positioned within the district? Every high school has SROs, and that includes all 3 of our major police department jurisdictions, Aurora, Greenwood Village, and Arapahoe. Each high school has a minimum of 2 officers assigned to it. Now, where it gets a little different is Greenwood Village and Arapahoe County provide SRO support for the middle schools and elementaries as well. Greenwood, as Corporal Joswick mentioned, has the 5 dedicated SROs that service, Cherry Creek High School, West Middle School, Campus Middle School, Bellevue Elementary, and Greenwood Elementary. So they have a pretty good complement of officers to attend to those schools. And obviously Cherry Creek, being the largest school in a 10-state region, requires a pretty good amount of manpower to kind of just manage the things that go on there on a day-to-day basis. Arapahoe County provides us 2 SROs per high school, and then 1 SRO per middle school, and then they have 2 SROs dedicated to their elementary schools on a roving basis. And then Aurora Police Department provides us 2 SROs for each of their high schools. And currently they do not provide direct services through their SRO unit to the middle schools or the elementary schools in their jurisdiction unless the middle school happens to fall on the same campus as the high school. So the examples I can give for that are Cherokee Trail and Fox Ridge Middle School share the same campus, Overland and Prairie Middle School, and Smoky Hill and Laredo Middle School. So those do get some attention from the SROs because they reside on the same campus. So what that means for us as a school district is that we have slightly different approaches to each of the schools depending on what law enforcement jurisdiction they're in. And then that means we have to supplement where we don't have those services with other patrol assets, or in Aurora, they have a unit called PAR, which is Police Area Representatives. And then we have our armed security coordinator positions here at the district that help service those schools that are uncovered by the SRO units. So I just wanted to provide some clarity on that, because that's often a common question that comes up. And just like Sarah, if you guys have any additional questions or information you're looking for, please feel free to throw it in the chat, or let us know if you just want to ask a question.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time here and your service and the expertise that you both bring. As we are waiting for people to process whether they have a question or something that they would like to find out about, if y'all don't mind staying put for the next few minutes while we have an update of our needs from one of our board members. Is that good with you? Thumbs up?
Sure, absolutely.
Alrighty. So if you have a question about security of buildings, of how mental health is addressed by the security team, how the buildings are dealt with, any of the things that they talked about, just throw it into the Q&A and we will address it as soon as we can. Right now, I would like to bring to you Bobby Turner. She was the past PIN co-chair along with me for the last couple of years, and she is now serving as the role of treasurer. And she is going to bring to you a few of our needs that we still have that maybe one of you is ready to help us fill.
Okay, so good morning. I just want to take a minute to highlight a few ways that you can become involved with PIN even in this online environment that we're living in. So there are 3 positions I'll highlight this morning. The first is that of communications coordinator. That person would manage PIN's team of communicators to see that things happen on time in terms of our publicity efforts. So some skills that would be valuable for that role are the ability to make edits to our flyers, and also to just stay on top of things and to be available to move quickly, just to move things along through our pipeline. So the estimated time that would take is between 2 and maybe 4 hours per month. And that is just a big need that we have right now. Another thing we're looking for is a treasurer's assistant. That person would take our bank statements and update a financial spreadsheet that shows where PIN stands in terms of its finances. And this role we need to find someone who was able to work in Excel. This takes about 1 hour a month, which is just so little time. If you know Excel, this is a great way to get involved with PIN. And lastly, I'll highlight our need for a programming assistant. This person acts as liaison between PIN and its presenters, and takes care of just all of the needs that our speakers have each month. And I think we say that the time varies, but I'm guessing, Susu, it's probably 1 to 2 hours, perhaps, typically. And that's fun because you get to actually talk to some really neat people who have a lot of good things to say. So I've been involved with PIN for about, the past 8 years. And it has been a true blessing to be involved with these amazing board members. It's just been a wonderful experience to me. My life is definitely fuller because of this. So if you have 1, 2, 3 hours available per month, we'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to figure out a way to get you involved with PIN. So if any of this sounds interesting, or if you just feel like you would like to get involved, but maybe haven't heard the right fit yet, please email us at pinccsd@gmail.com. Hope to hear from you. Thanks.
Thank you, Bobby. I would like to second that. I don't know if I ever introduced myself. I'm Susu Duga, and I'm the co-chair along with Shari Mendry, who you have heard her voice, and you might be seeing her right now. Um, she is my
Just a
other
moment here.
co-chair.
So hi, sorry, I have an echo because I'm watching it also, but I'm Shari and I am the new co-chair.
So we just have a great time, even in a Zoom platform. And we do have monthly board meetings, Zoom style, that are about 2 hours long. And you get to know a lot of neat people, and we brainstorm and we problem solve, and we're creative and we're supportive. So if that sounds like something that you would like to add to your life at this point, please email us pinccsd@gmail.com, and one of us board members will be in contact with you. Corporal Joswick and is it Ian, do you have a title since you were a past?
My current title is director. You can call me Ian though, prefer that.
Okay. I didn't know if you were a corporal or a sergeant or a something official that I
No.
should carry
You
on.
always call me Sarah. You don't have to call me Chloe.
All righty. Well, Sarah and Ian, I am so appreciative, as is everyone here at Penn, that you put other things aside so that you could be part of our organization and our meeting today. It looks like you guys were so complete that there are no questions right
Okay.
now. So if they
So
come up
I
later,
was
we
going to
will-
step in for a moment. There was one question that Ian answered in the Q&A, but just in case people were not looking at the Q&A, I had asked him, somebody wanted to know what an SRO was. And I think that that's actually a very good question. I couldn't have explained it the way Ian did in his Q&A. So if we want to give him a moment to explain what that means, I think that would be great.
Sure. So an SRO stands for School Resource Officer. That is a specially trained and selected police officer from the local jurisdictions that come into the schools and are assigned there on a full-time basis. So when you're selecting SROs, the first thing you're looking for is the right fit, right? Somebody who's going to be good around kids, somebody who has the right mentality, whose understanding is they're there to forge relationships and be a mentor and a resource to the students and a staff. Because there's so many questions that come up on a daily basis in the life of a student in high school, middle school, and not as much in elementaries, but on occasion the principals come up with something, and it could be a parent issue, it could be a stranger issue, it could be a kind of just a random question, but there's all kinds of stuff that the SROs do that have absolutely nothing to do with arresting kids or charging kids. 95% of what they do on a daily basis is just forge relationships and try to, become, I guess, a positive influence on the kids in the building. Jerry, you got any more to add to that?
No, I think you actually did a very good job. In our unit, we're very selective on who we choose as our school resource officers. It is a national program. We operate under the National Association of School Resource Officer guidelines. So we do go through training, both a basic and an advanced course to be part of this unit. And everybody who's here wants to be here. Nobody's here as a punishment or anything like that. We're all very excited to be school resource officers, and we enjoy what we do. We miss our kids tremendously. We want nothing more than to have them back in the school so that we can goof off and have fun with them and be here for them. And we look forward to having them back in the school. I can tell you that. We really, really miss them.
And if I could, real quick, is just share the fact that, one of the things that we're trying to do here in the district is have formal relationships built with each of our SRO units, right? And that comes through a process called IGA, which stands for Intergovernmental Agreement. But we're trying to get those formal adoptions of what are our roles and responsibilities, and how can we partner with our SRO unit so that we can have stuff in writing and clearly establish what our formal relationship is. so that we can have free flow of information and we can provide stuff back and forth to one another as it pertains to student safety. And as Sarah mentioned earlier, one of the biggest things that we do with them on a daily basis, I mean, happens every day, is we get a lot of mental health alerts for students who are struggling, depression, potentially suicidal thoughts, maybe even just, they're angry about something, or, it's tough being a teenager, right? You don't know how to handle breakups. You don't know how to handle kids being mean. Maybe you have failures that you don't feel comfortable speaking with your parents or someone else that you're close to. And so they bottle that stuff up, and then sometimes it comes out in negative ways. So we try to intervene with our mental health teams, our SROs, all of our security staff, our district mental health teams, our building mental health teams, so that we can provide overwatch for students and try to get resources to families as quickly as possible so that we can intercept those kids before they reach their breaking points.
Well, that's a lot more than we thought
Yeah.
that SROs and security took care of. So we are really appreciative of that.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to know that you are also looking forward to when the kids can go back to school. And I think kids are going to be appreciating the beauty of being in a school building with all the messiness and chaos that comes with it, but it will be something that will be no longer taken for granted. So
Sure.
thank you guys very much. I don't see any other questions anywhere. If we end up finding some, we will hunt you down and get some more good information from you. Thank you. Again, we
Awesome.
look
Thank you
forward
again
to
for
when we
having
can
me.
see you in person.
You guys, take care. Have a great day.
All right. Bye-bye. Okay, right now we are ready to start. What you probably tuned in for was an uplifting, a supportive, and a meaningful conversation this morning. Grab your cup of tea, your cup of coffee, maybe a pen and a pencil, because you're going to have some words of wisdom, some insight, maybe some challenges, new way of looking at things that our speaker, Rachel Kodanaz, will give to us. Last year, wow, remember last year? Actually, it was this year. It wasn't that long ago, when there were several of us from the PIN board who went and listened to Rachel speak. And when we heard her, we said, boy, we've got to have her on board for our PIN agenda and our schedule for the year. So thank you, Rachel, for accepting our offer to be here. And I will let you describe a little bit of your background and what brought you to this place to be able to share with us about life's challenges and how to turn something that just doesn't seem anything positive into something that we can celebrate.
Well, thank you for the introduction. Good morning to everybody. I'm really honored to be here today. I wish we were in person so that we could actually exchange hellos and hugs and handshakes and whatever else that we physically like to do. And I am going to talk to you today about embracing life's challenges. That's kind of my mode of what I've been speaking about for at least 20 years. It varies on the audience, it varies on different aspects of what the host of my programs would like me to speak about. But today, specifically on embracing life's challenges, I'm going to talk about the losses of 2020, that how we could get them to be gains of 2021. I've been speaking literally for over 20 years, and I'll tell you how I got there. But the point of what I really want to say of how long I've been speaking, I have never had a topic that affects every single human being in the world. Because I talk on loss and death and hardships, but this is one that COVID has created. We're all in this together. And so even though I'm going to give you some ideas to think about, it's not like, okay, this is only, if there's 40 of us on this call, that only 20 of us are affected by this. We all are. And what I'd like to do over the next 90 minutes that we have together is kind of take my idea of just twisting it a little bit of, instead of that, all the pain and suffering we have from that is what we've learned. And I'm going to give you some examples. And for me, my biggest aha of all this is that I don't need to move as fast as I used to move. And I kind of feel good about that. And I'm looking forward to 2021 to just have my priorities a little shifted. But that's just one to kick off for a little bit here. In addition to the perspective outside of COVID, I want to just talk about, I know you're a school district, but I would imagine everybody on the call is an adult. So while I'm speaking to you, who's going to be speaking to kids, I'm also speaking to you specifically, because I think the most important person in an equation is you, because if you can perform the best that you can and understand your challenges the best you can communicate those. So please know that I'll jump over of different types of people that are on this call, but this is really an all-inclusive call. I love questions. I love interaction. It's what I really miss about the podium. But just to give a little bit of a background, by profession, I'm a business person. I'm IT telecommunications. I came out of school in the years that it was not your little Apple device that you have in your hands or your whatever kind of smart device you have. I was mainframe, and I wanted to break the glass ceiling. And I had great desires to break that glass ceiling of a men's world, but also a new technology, a new industry. And I had the most unfortunate situation that my husband passed away suddenly when I was 31, he was 32, and we had a 2-year-old daughter. While it's not important for this conversation, I just want to tell you that when I share things with you along the way, this is many, many years ago, when I share things along the way, is that we have hardships that happen to us, and it's not what we do with them. It's how we embrace them and how we move forward. And I chose to switch my career. And I'm going to talk about that with COVID too, people switching their careers. I did make a change, a new chapter, whatever you want to call it, to my career, because I don't know, I just felt like I needed to help people, and I needed to add some current and relevancy to hardships that people think, words such as bereavement and mourning and grief, bereavement, and mourning are 3 words that to me are time bound. But when you have any kind of hardship like this past year that has happened to all of us, it's not time bound. We are going to have the reaction of this year forever. We could joke it out to say that, 2020, well, like what a joke of 2020, but it has changed our students. It has changed our relationship from our teachers to the students. I mean, where they are academically has changed, where we are all career-wise, households. I mean, some of us are very fortunate to have a family at home right now, but there's so many individuals that are isolated. I mean, my mother-in-law is a perfect example of that have been isolated for 9 months. That stuff does not go away overnight. There's going to be lasting effects, and we're going to be reading about it, just like Ian had shared that he's working on the emotional and mental side of everything that's going on. So when I go through my presentation today, I would love, love, love for you to interact with me so I don't feel alone with my little green dot on my computer. I'm going to pull up in a second. I'm going to pull up my slides and share my screen. My contact information is on it. And where I can't quite finish, so you'll understand when it comes up, is that this whole energy that I've changed in my new chapter of my life. I write books before March. That's where I met some of you. I was on a book tour. My 3rd book came out in October, and I was doing a nationwide book tour, and I stopped somewhere where you guys showed up, but of course I came to a screeching halt. But my first book was Living with Loss One Day at a Time, 365, what I call lessons and thoughts and loss. No religion, it's just some days I'm really nice to the reader and tell them that they should have a soothing cup of tea and sit on the couch and watch really bad TV, and other days having one meal outside of the house. So they get up, they get dressed, they go, they try to behave with the person they're with. And when they come home, they are, well, that wasn't so bad. Maybe I'll do it again. An organic way of working through any type of loss, whatever you have. And then I wrote a book on grief in the workplace. It's really corporate central. And then my latest book, where I met some of you, was Finding Peace One Piece at a Time, What to Do with Yours and Your Loved Ones' Possessions. because what do you do with all this stuff and things? And some of you have probably been very busy cleaning out your houses over the last 9 months. So what do you do with the heirlooms? What do you do with the stuff that you've accumulated? And seeing that we're doing a kids program, what do you do with all those trophies? So, and the trophies that they may or may not have deserved. So I'm here to talk about any of those things. When I pull up my slides, my contact information is there. Feel free to reach out to me at any time. I love questions. I love interaction, and seeing that I am not on that airplane right now. It's kind of fun to connect, especially with people in Colorado. So I'm going to share my screen. So as I'm talking, you get to see all the other things that I have open. Looks like I have a family picture. And I'm going to start this slideshow. And as I said, I'm here to answer any questions. We do have the question Q&A room open, and we're going to keep an eye on it. So again, this is me, Rachel Kodanaz. I'm Embracing Life's Challenge is pretty much the title on the majority of my presentations these days, because it seems that we struggle a little bit with that, and I'm here to help. Sorry. And then this year, I'm trying to get you into this presentation specifically is to take some of our losses and move it into gains. What I do want to say is that I know there's a lot of articles out there that how we should be grateful for what we have. I mean, for most of us, and I would say on this call, I don't want to say everybody, we're warm in the winter, cool in the summer, we have food on our table. And even though we're disrupted, we are doing okay, but I know that's not for everybody. So I don't want to be simple when I say to you that these are all gains that we're having next year. What I want to do is just provide you with a little bit of a thought pattern that gives you, on the days that, we all have setbacks, and some days we could do really well with what's going on with the pandemic, and other days we wake up and say, I don't have it today, or I'm burnt out on it. So I'm just going to give you some ideas that maybe you could share with your coworkers, your family, do whatever you want with them. They're just seeds. And I'm hoping by spring, these seeds will grow to some beautiful flower. So hang on, here we go. Whoops, okay. So I just want to stress this over and over and over again, that it's really not what has happened to us. It's rather what you can do with what happened to us. None of us wanted any kind of challenge in our life. It would be so great if each day was just a little bit easier to work. Whoops, sorry, I went a little fast. That each day we woke up and we had full control of our day, and we had full control of the people around us, and full control of what the government is telling us that we can and cannot do, and weather and everything else. But we can't. So it's not about what happened. And in all my hardships in my life, and I've had a few, is that once you get a little bit past, I can't believe this is happening, to, okay, I can't change what happened. You smashed the car, you can't change anything about it. Is that, what do you do to get to the next phase of that? Or what do you do to the next step with it? And I think it's really important because, and I'm all for dwelling on it. I'm all for, if you need to stay in bed for 2 days, go for it. Because I think we all need to have our emotional setbacks as we need them and as we want them. So to keep going, today's what we're talking about is recognizing the individual hardships and challenges experienced in 2020 are real, painful, and truly a setback from your expectations of what should be. I am a mom that's supposed to be having a wedding this year, and I got 2 more weeks for COVID to just stay where it is so I can get this wedding done. That's only one. I get every one of you that are on the call can probably give me 20. So school, everything around it, it is so unbelievably painful and so unbelievably unreal, but it is happening. So we just have to deal with it. So I want to help you switch your expectations of what should have been to, you know what, this is it. And I want to make sure that you understand that individual hardship is not community hardship. Individual is truly what happens behind your front door. And there's nobody on this call or in the world that can judge what happens behind your front door, because we will never understand what it's like to be under your roof. We don't know the circumstances. We don't know the support. We don't know the love. We don't know the challenges. We don't know any of that. You might tell us, but that's a one-sided, and we don't even know what your strengths are within it or what your coping skills are. So please know that individual hardships are not community hardships. Understand the challenges we experience individually in a community provide opportunities for growth, creativity, and empowerment. I know on some mornings, some afternoons, some evenings, that may or may not be true to you, but we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to realize a new normal may be different in 2021 and forever. However, the gains from the losses and setbacks provide a platform for growth, change, and redefinition. I don't think I've ever had, other than my husband's death 20 something years ago, I don't think I've ever had something that shook me up or the people around me as much as the pandemic has. I think it's changed the relationship with my sisters. I think it's changed our relationship with my friends. I feel that the B team is out of here. The A team is going to come on strong. And it's not that I didn't like the B team, but I'm going to manage my time. And my time is for the people that I feel right here in my heart and my responsibilities and my jobs. And I've got quite a few of them. That's going to be what I'm going to really realize my new normal is going to look like. Not creating it yet because I don't know what it can look like, but I'm actually striving towards working in a way that, okay, I'm not going to go back to what it was in 2019. There's no way it's going to ever look like that. I mean, just think of the time that we're all going to hug each other and crowd a football stadium or, Sutter Bowl, or any of that. Like, it's going to be a long time before that really does happen. And then I want to help you create a personal toolkit in supporting and adapting to your new path. You'll hear me say a couple times that I would love for you, when you learn something or feel something or something really talks to you, write it down and share it with 3 to 5 people, coworkers, family, house of worship, whatever group that you want, each other, the PIN group, is that when you share that idea for 3 to 5 people, it kind of gets a little bit in your head and your heart that it might be something that you want to look at and feel that it's something that you should. I don't like to use the word should, so bear with me on that one, is that it's something that is, because I just don't love when you should or shouldn't do something. It's kind of hard for some people to understand that who am I to tell you what you should and shouldn't do. But I would love it if you would take a couple things and share with some other people. So to keep moving along is, I have to explain to you what I feel a challenge to be. And in this picture, I show that the chain link being broken, because it's anything that changes your emotional or physical path. And I'm going to let you digest that for a minute. Anything that changes your emotional or physical path. I do like to use this simple example before we get into the real details of what's really challenging right now. So you get up in the morning, let's talk pre-COVID. You get up in the morning, you're running around your house, you throw the pot of coffee on, you've got let the dog out, you've got to get the kids ready for school, or if you're a teacher, maybe you're packing up all your stuff, and you go to get a cup of coffee. And on your way out or in with the coffee pot, you hit your granite countertop and that coffee pot breaks, okay? That's that broken chain link right now. It just changed everything that you were doing. It's going to set you off emotionally. We're going to talk more about the emotions and the logic around a challenge, but that throws a little bit more emotion in. You got to get the dog out of the broken glass. You got to get, everything that goes around that. It just sets you off for the day. I think that we could all sit back right now when we're in our logical minds and say, you know what? Breaking a coffee pot, breaking the pot of a coffee pot is so irrelevant, especially when there's a Starbucks on every corner. It's so irrelevant, but that does set your emotions off for the day. So when I talk about that simple challenge, let's get into some what I'll call real challenges. And these are what I'm going to define them. I like to use the word life-changing events versus speed bumps. And you guys work with me on this. Obviously, a pandemic is a life-changing event, but death, illness, family caregiving, loss of a job, divorce, and I added recently the pandemic and social unrest. These are really things that are happening around us, to us, with us, involved with us, that are what I'll call life-changing challenges. These are ideas and notions that we need to really put our heart around them and say, I got to do something about this. On the other side of the screen is the speed bumps. And I like to use that word because what do speed bumps do on a road? They slow you down. They don't stop you, they slow you down. And when you're slowed down, we've got cell phones, we've got ways of communicating, we've got things that around us that can help us over the speed bump. For example, deadlines, okay? If I wasn't prepared for this today, I know that some of the panel, some of the committee would have helped me a little bit. Okay, so it's a deadline I need to do, but if I speak up and say, you know what, I'm a little behind the 8 ball, can you give me, cut it back 15 minutes, ask me some more questions, whatever it is, there's ways to work around it. in your household is the same thing. And the deadlines go for a lot of different things. And I'm going to just speak to that for one more second, is that when I was corporate America, I was working in telecommunications, and the FCC gave us deadlines. And those deadlines were so expensive if we met them. You know, they're 10 grand a day when you had when the FCC wanted something new in there. And that was years ago, it was 10 grand a day. So I know some deadlines are really hard. I think they are, they show integrity. There's other pieces to it, but it's still a speed bump because that deadline's going to come and go, and you're going to either figure it out or you're going to get help. Household, you could probably tell by my presentation and who I am a neatnik. And my household, I've got to get over the fact I've got 4 people in my house right now when it was just me and a dog, and I've never had a pet my entire life. But I've got people living and working out of my house and 3 meals a day, and you guys have the same thing, and you got to let some of that go. And it's okay if you don't do the dishes, and it's okay that I'm learning that the dog's scratching the floors, and it's okay of all that stuff. But those are speed bumps because there's ways out of them when the time comes and you need to do it. Another example is travel interruption. I know we're not traveling right now, but put your old hat on. I know a lot of people get really frustrated when travel is interrupted. Being a national speaker and on the plane, you don't get to be 1K unless you really travel a lot, is that I have learned that travel interruption is not, I can call, if it's not my fault, I could call where I need to be and just say, you know what, I'm doing the best I can. And that's maybe an opportunity to make a phone call, send an email, or actually read 10 pages of your book that you've been really wanting to read. I know it's a little different right now, but just think of it that way. Short-term health, nothing to do with the pandemic, but it's a speed bump when you get a cold. It really sucks being in bed for 2 days, but it is something that it's going to come and go. Fender benders, we don't like them. They cost you $1,000. You can't get out of a fender bender under $1,000. You get mad at yourself, especially if it was your fault. But it's a speed bump because in 3 to 6 months, you won't even remember it happened. And the same thing with work-life balance. I know we're not talking about current 2020, 2021, but I needed to throw this at you for a second for you guys to realize and to think about defining the challenges around you. And while COVID is a big challenge, if you look at this slide, it's broken down into many different things because as I shared, my interruption of COVID is different than your interruption of COVID, but while I have so many great strengths and so many great ideas around it, I've got to change some of my beliefs in my household. As you guys know, making 3 meals a day is not something that you did before. Maybe you did. So I wanted to add a little perspective to it because we could be 40 people on this call and 5 of us might look at it one way and 5 of us might look at it another way. And it's really important to know that people react differently. In your own personal and professional circles, you'll know, you can just understand that some people will go into the classroom and do their Zoom or whatever product you're using, while other people don't want to go in. We read the same articles, we watch the same news as each other. Some people are so out there with they don't care, they're not going to catch this virus, they want business as usual. There's those types of people. And then there's people that will not leave their house. And then something in between happens. And while you watch the people closest to you, it's so unbelievable easy to judge because some people will do 80% protective, but the 20% you're like, why would they do that? So all I'm saying is that people react differently. Their needs are differently. I shared earlier that we don't know what happens behind someone's front door. So please understand that just because you wouldn't do something doesn't mean that it's wrong for somebody else to do it. And we are influenced by the people around us. Recognizing a challenge does not mean you'll accept it. That is really important. And maybe that's something that if you really want to take away something today is recognizing a challenge doesn't mean you will accept it. Whether it is death, whether it is a loss, whether it's a pandemic, whether it's social unrest, whatever it is, sometimes we just have to say, oh my gosh, there is a pandemic going on right now. I got to figure out how to live with it, but I'm not going to accept it. You might be mad how it started. You might be mad of how the government's handling it in either direction, too open, too closed. I want to be in school. I don't want to be in school. It doesn't mean that you have to accept it. You have to work within your means to work through it. Adding perspective to a challenge, we've talked about it quite a bit. And then challenges come in different sizes. I just spent the time talking to you about life-changing versus what I'll call a speed bump. When I say it comes in different sizes, what's happening in your household right now is, for some people, is enormous. For some other people, it's great joy. And I know that I keep talking about myself because I just want to put that in perspective, and you guys are looking at me right now. I had to come up with 4 offices. I am very grateful for Wayfair and another couple of other those smaller companies that just throw these desks and boxes and then they show up by UPS. I took bedrooms and I created desks. I'm sure you guys have done the same thing. We have it's just loud. I mean, my husband needs to get back on his plane. He is very loud during the day, and we've been living with that for 9 months. So what I'm just saying is that they come in different sizes. Some of us don't even have a job anymore. You know, it's just different challenges. So just know that they're not as big as getting groceries delivered or feeling uncomfortable going outside the door, or it's just, there's just a lot going on right now. And you know, have the same thing as I do. Most of you probably have Nextdoor, the product Nextdoor. It comes to you via email, and some of the negativeness on that is it's so helpful and it's so loving how neighbors help each other, but is also really scary at the same time. So to keep going, I need to talk about what 2019 was and really the first 3 months of 2020. We had stability, if that's what you want to call what you had in your life, but there was stability. You kind of knew you had a trajectory, you knew what you were going to do. You had your own personal growth trajectory. You kind of knew if you have kids or if you're working in a school district, you kind of knew that kids are going to go to school. These are your vacation days. This is when finals are and sports, and you have some kind of scheduling. You had some normalcy. You had, like I said, personal growth trajectory. You had a professional plan. You knew where you wanted to grow professionally. You had a family plan. This is what we're going to do. This is vacation. This is how we're going to interact with family members. This is how we're going to interact with our maybe religious affiliations. There was expectations of each other. The expectations that Monday through Thursday were pretty planned for us, that there was homework, there was anything like that. And you had a rhythm. Whether you liked what you had before or not isn't part of the conversation. What I'm saying is that this was your life before the pandemic came. And then what happens is that everything blows up in March. And then, you know, you think that you're going to go on this journey of being home for the month of March and into April. And yes, we struggled with how to do Zoom and we struggled how to interact. But at the beginning of it, for not all of us, but most of us, it was, you know, we were cooking some soups, we were having fun, we were interacting with our kids, we were grateful for the time together. You know, we're streaming things that we hadn't had a chance to watch. There was the very beginning of the pandemic, the first 4 or 5 weeks was, you know, there were no rules. You could stay in your pajamas all day. You could brush your teeth when you want to brush your teeth. But it got old. By the time, you know, it got old and we didn't know how to adjust to it. So where I don't want to harp on the losses of 2020, I just want to put them in a little bit different of a perspective. That it was the unknown and we're still living with it. We can't think past today. Maybe we can in a school district and maybe some businesses can think past that. But I really want to believe that many of us in our households, it's hard to look to the unknown because you don't even know what the weekend's going to be, because right now, a lot of us don't have plans for anything. You want to know when you're going to see a loved one. It's an unknown. You want to know when you're going to do an errand that you're going to feel comfortable about. It's unknown. The holidays are around the corner. It's unknown what it looks like. It's unknown what Thanksgiving costs. It's all unknown. And I would venture to guess that many of you are in a position where I am, is the unknown is unsettling for me. I'm a planner, yes, but I can come meet you halfway and say planning isn't everything, but being everything unknown it's difficult because you just can't answer anybody's questions. You don't know how to answer them. The unimaginable, that's probably the one, and I spoke about that at the very beginning, that is the one I think that the idea that hovers over all of us. How could this possibly happen? How did we not control it? This is 2020. We have brilliance. We have communication, venues. We have so much. And yet I think we live, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think there is part of us that lives in this, how it's unimaginable. I have a couple different jobs, but one of the jobs I do is I went to EMT school this year, which we'll talk about that later. And I'm working some helping out in the ER. And I was talking to somebody yesterday working in an ER, and they said that it's not unimaginable, Rachel, is that we're at a 100-year cycle on everything, whether it be floods, whether it be fires, whether it be beetle kill in our mountains, that we do have a cycle, and that we should have known that something was coming and we should have prepared. And I have to be honest, I stayed up all last night because I knew I was presenting with you today, thinking to myself, is it unimaginable? Like, do I need to change that slide that I have? But I'm still going to leave it here for you because I do think it is unimaginable. And maybe it's through our education, or maybe it's through our own personal beliefs. I just can't believe that it's gotten this far and it continues. And it's not just the United States, it's everywhere. The emotional roller coaster, I don't know about you guys, but there's a lot of me and a lot of people in my life that are taking 2 steps forward, and all of a sudden we take a step back, whatever causes it, whatever triggers it. Maybe it's a call with some family members. Maybe it's you guys, Ian talked about earlier, the emotional toll on some of our students. Maybe it's just up, down, and I call it up, down, and all around, but it's a loss because our stability emotionally has been challenged. I think my word of 2020 is judgment. I'm not sure I have ever been around or heard, and remember, I'm presenting, I'm reading my Q&A, I'm listening to questions, I'm getting follow-up, and in articles that you read, that just because your beliefs are this, we seem to be judging other people on their beliefs. So as I said earlier, that I'm involved in some things, and one of my things is being involved in ski patrol and guest services and special ops. And we had, unfortunately, COVID went through all of us in late February, Burton board games that were up there, and nobody knew what it was. And we did get pretty sick, whether it was our locker room that did it, or I don't know, we didn't know what it was. And I was one of those sick people, and I was in the hospital and in and out of the hospital, and I, at my age and still, breathing. But I can't believe the judgment that I have received from people that said, where were you? Who are you with? Did you have a party? Did you, we weren't even wearing masks then. So judgment has happened of whether you'll go out of the house, whether you'll socialize, whether you will have a bubble with your neighbor. The judgment of 2020 is probably my biggest hardship that I'm taking away, that has hurt my feelings, so to speak, of the losses of 2020. Insecurities, we have them now. It's financially, it's independence, it's ideas taken away from us. What does the future look like? Will I have money? Will my kids get into a college? Will my kids be able to play sports? You could call those the unknowns, but I think some of it becomes a little bit of insecurities. And we as parents, I'm not sure everybody on the call is a parent, but we as parents, we take on the insecurities of our children. It's just what happens. When they're sad, we're sad. Some of you might be a bigger person than I am when it comes to that. But when I look at kids, and I think they have reasonable reasons to be insecure, or reasonably to be sad, that it's nothing that I can fix. I really do have some insecurities around that. And I think that's a loss of 2020. Celebration of life milestones, I don't even need to touch that. I would venture to guess that everybody on the call at least had 4 or 5, or know at least 4 or 5 people that had interruption of life milestones. Some of them are fixable, and some of them are, like some of these weddings that have gone smaller, that people are saying how wonderful they are. Some high school graduations turned absolutely lovely, and they'll be forever reminded with their masks of what their year that they graduated in 2020. They're the funerals that have been really hard when there was less than 10 people allowed. Those types of life milestones is definitely a loss. The loss of sense of time, like we don't even know what day. I mean, obviously when you're working, you know what day of week it is, but they all seem to roll together, not like they used to, because we had plans on the weekends or we were traveling. So the lost sense of time, that I don't know what it is for you guys, but I don't know what happens. I wake up every day, and before I know it, it's 9 o'clock at night and I'm getting back into bed, and I'm not sure where the whole day went. Touch starvation, that I feel that some of us just really are hurting without the hugs and the love and we're starving for an interaction of touch. interaction with others, just being able to be out of the house, and compromised individuals. My 89-year-old mother-in-law for 9 months hasn't been with anybody. There are compromised individuals that are scared to go out the door from health perspective, and they can't even get out of the house. So these are the losses. And as I said to you at the very beginning, I'm not really going to dwell on the losses, but I wanted to put these in a different perspective to you, not just I didn't get to go to my son's graduation, or my son wasn't able to play, or my daughter wasn't able to play in her state game, of soccer. So now she's going to be challenged to get into college, or whatever it else might be. I wanted to share with you just really that it's deeper than just events that we met. And this goes into some of the emotional reaction and the emotional challenges that we had. So now I'm going to go into what I call the different how people different react to it, and why, when you're given all those fears that I just gave, or all those ideas that I gave, how it reacts to different people. And I have a friend in my life that sends every morning, she calls them the morning, well, she's called the morning funnies, but I don't think they're so funny anymore, because some of it is really becoming sad, because she started at the very beginning. And this is one that she sent me recently. In other news, the 7 dwarfs have been advised that as of today, they can only meet in groups of 6. One of them isn't happy. And well, it is really sarcastic, but it just kind of puts into perspective that we are in a situation that we have up but no choice to just deal with. And the different reactions and circumstances, the fears, the family and community support. Some of you haven't seen extended family for 9 to 10 months if you don't live near them. And things get strange and strained and strange when you don't have that physical and emotional interaction. As I said earlier, I think relationships are changing. I can't even fathom some of the financial situations. My programs really ended quickly, and I'm not the only person that brings income into my house. And while I'm doing this presentation to you, if I was in an audience, I get to sell books in the back and I get to create new business. But being on a Zoom call, that doesn't always happen. So my financial situation has changed, yet I still have somebody that is actually working. It also, when I have on the bottom of this, inequalities in a household, my household has changed. My husband's working 14, 15 hours a week, and I am, my kids are back home and they're school and they're doing all this stuff. And yet my inequalities, as I say, in the household, I had more time. So the look at me was, okay, you're going to do the grocery shopping. You're going to do the 3 meals a day. That is really hard for families when there's inequality. Sadness. We know that the person that anybody in the household or in school or in the classroom is sad. It brings everybody else down with it. So these are the different reactions of circumstances, the living arrangements. Will go on a limb and say your household, who's living in there, and the arrangements that have happened over the last 10 months are not the way they were in February and March. And maybe I'm going out on a limb with that, but I'm gonna stay with it for now. I'm gonna take a high percentage of the people that are on the call, and there's so much more. So now what do? This is really, I want to spend my time, and I would love for people to throw in, whether it's even though it's called the Q&A, even if it is just a comment, we could all read it and we can kind of interrupt and go with it. So I'm going to do the individual gains and I'm going to do the public gains. Okay, I don't know if we've ever had a community awareness of anything like we do now. Sometimes maybe weather in Colorado, we get a little bit of a community awareness that we are all in this together. But for the most part, that's what I call a gain, is that we've come together as a community. There are onesie twosies that we read about that we get very upset with, but you all know in your Cherry Creek School District that you have come together as a community and are fighting this battle together. And I think that is just great. I mean, I don't want to be behind the scenes to know some of the, like I said, the onesie twosies that are, and the fight between in class, out of class. But the point is, there is an awareness here that there are multiple sides of the story and multiple people, that different people have different reactions to this. Appreciation of essential workers. They are the lowest paid people in our, I don't want to say it in general, but for the most part. I went to EMT school. I'm embarrassed for what we pay EMTs, yet we trust them with our lives, and to get us from one location to the other safely. Those grocery workers that went in that are making minimum wage, are healthcare providers that are probably making a little bit more than a minimum wage. I'm not going to go into teacher's salary because it's not my place to do that, especially when I'm talking to an educational group. But essential workers putting themselves on the line. I have two sisters that are in school districts, not in Colorado. And one of my sisters has explained to me over and over again what it's like. She's in the elementary school of trying to get these kids to focus on Zoom, and whether she wants to go in, yet the school district doesn't want her to go in. So the gain here is we have an appreciation for these people that are holding us together. We've never had that before. Hard word never, but work with me a little bit on that. We have just taken a lot of that for granted. Personal needs accessibility, being able to get what you need. And I'm kind of go really loose on that, but I also could go very high on that our personal needs, what we have at our disposal, I don't think that we could ever have imagined what happens behind the scene while we're all home, other than a little bit of toilet paper and other than a little bit of food at the very beginning that we challenged on certain things that we couldn't find, whether it was an onion or a chicken. We have had accessibility to every one of our needs and healthcare, and maybe it wasn't the same as before. This is a gain for us to realize that our society works. We found a way to make it work. The increase of virtual content. I am watching things online. I'm learning on so many different things. I'm able to go to school online, the concerts online, the educational pieces online, just everything that we now have. I don't want to sit in front of a computer all day and all night, but there is virtual content that we couldn't access before. We couldn't access concerts. We had to go to the concerts. So that's a public gain. Business process improvements. I mean, I think the airlines are ones that are showing you, I know we're not on them, but people are, is that the cleanliness of them, the loading and unloading of the planes, the Trader Joe's that leaves their lines outside. I mean, we could go on and on about the different business, probably within your own schools, how your processes, your communications, your interaction with just not students, with faculty, with teachers, with parents. There's a lot of process improvements that have occurred because we have been forced to change them. Ability to work from home. I know it's a sore subject, and some of us are extremely fortunate that we have the opportunity to work from home. And I feel like sometimes it's segregated our communities by those that have a corporate job and can do that to those that have to go in. But for some of us, with our kids home right now, the fact that we are still working and the fact that we could still have a job and we could still get a direct deposit into our bank account, to me, the ability to work from home. If you had asked a boss, maybe not in education, but many people asked a boss to say, I like to work from home Wednesday to Friday this week, I have daycare issues, they would have said to you, no way. That's going to change. That's a gain that we've received, is that we do have the ability to work from home. And the restaurant expandability, I mean, I am shocked at how people, I know there's a lot that are closing, and I'm not trying to for 1 second minimize the stress that this has occurred, but the fact that they have been able to expand outside, the fact that we are giving up roads to restaurants to help not only the restaurant do their business, but have us safe as we go to the restaurants, the carry out, the picking up the carry out outside, the menus that we're not touching anymore. These are all public gains. I mean, for some of us, I know the last 3 weeks have been a little different with COVID and it got cold, but if we think of the fall, it feels European in Cherry Creek. It feels European in some of these other places in some of the mountain towns, or Larimer, with tables on the streets. I mean, that to me is a gain. I don't know where it's going to go or what's going to happen, but it's definitely a gain. And I would like you to try to look at some of that stuff. Not that we are forced to do it, but oh my gosh, we have responded in a beautiful way. Now to get into a little bit of the individual gains. And again, feel free to throw, you might be sick of me talking at you. So if you want to, throw in a Q&A, a conversation, let's go for it. But this is where I would like you to think about your own personal life, not mine, not your coworkers, not even your families, just you. Some gains that you have you just what has changed in your life that has given you the opportunity to say, wow, I've really grown this year? The first one is personal adaptability. I I think I have been challenged, and I said it's just not about me, but think about you, is that the adaptability that we have had no choice, but we've done it. We've been empowered and we've done it. So pat yourself on the back and say, okay, I have been able to, I'm not an Eeyore anymore. I am adapting to what's around me. I have figured it out. I am helping the people around me. The reevaluations of careers, as I've been presenting the last 9 to 10 months, that might be the biggest, one of the greatest, that line right there of the emails and phone calls that I get or connections I get through my websites, is that the reevaluation of careers, that maybe I don't want to do what I've been doing. Maybe it's time to make a change. And the shutdown of our normalcy has allowed me to think outside of the box, and maybe this is the time to do it. I was in the ER yesterday, and people were telling me that they have changed their jobs to healthcare because they felt that it was such a need. There's just other people that have said, you know what, I don't want to go back on the road with my corporate job. Maybe I will do something local. So think about that a little bit. There has been it's a gain. It's a forced gain, but it's still a gain. It's okay to be alone. Some of the work that I do is I work with a lot of widows, and I'm so proud of people that have really been not just widows, but people that live alone or they're working from home alone and they have no human contact. I've been hearing from them that I've adjusted to this. I'm really okay to be alone, that I don't have to be out every night. And I have people that have talked to me that say, you know, I had book club on Tuesday night. I did the kids thing on Wednesday night. I was in a committee on Thursday night. And by the weekend, I was exhausted. And their comment back to me was, I don't know why I filled my time like that. I'm really okay to be alone. I thought I did all that stuff because I wasn't okay to be alone. I know some people do it for different reasons, but I'm just talking specifically to be alone. Slowing the pace, I'm shocked at how much, I don't want to say I have more time, but I just don't feel like I'm running ragged all the time. And probably some of it is that we're not getting up and getting fully dressed every day. So that, or commuting, which gives us 2 hours back into our calendar, that we are eating at home, although that takes a little time to cook, but that's also an opportunity to be with your family and work with them. So just slowing the pace a little bit. I think that's a gain. I think reevaluation of relationships, whether you want to stick to just your A team and change your relationship with your B team. For me, I reevaluate all my relationships because it's about where I want to take my risk with COVID and where I want to put my energy. It's a gain. Maybe we had too many people in our Outlook. Maybe we were following too many people on social media. Maybe it's time that none of that matters anymore. And so to work with that whole notion of reevaluating of relationships. Family time, I've done so many puzzles. It's been so fun. The conversations around puzzles. There is no way that my husband would have sat down and done a puzzle with all of us if he was in his typical traveling mode with his job. Our family time it was difficult at the beginning when everybody was here, and it was like people were disappointed with what they were losing from their life before COVID. But we came around, we found a gel, we're working it out. We've got whiteboards in different places for groceries and responsibilities and stuff like that. And it's a gain. It's a gain. And they're reprioritizing of time, what really matters, and make sure it happens. Shifted distractions. I'm not, at least, I'm going to speak for myself, is that I'm not distracted by as many things because I'm controlling what's coming in. I'm not, it's just giving me a little bit more of scheduling of my time. You may not feel this way, but I feel that I have a richness gain for being in each other's homes. Presenting for 10 months on Zoom, I have been in thousands and thousands of homes. And it's really, to me, honored that I am able to come to you. Some of the support groups that I've done is a little bit more difficult because there's other people in the house, but earbuds do a great thing. It's hard to talk, but you can actually, you're not hearing what other people say. But I have a great written, I miss the audiences. I miss being with people. But my gain is that you've trusted me enough today for let me to come into your home. I know some of you are in your offices, but you're letting me come into your home. And for me, I feel very honored. And I think that's a richness. One of my presentations, a woman said to me, she actually typed in the Q&A, and I would love for hint for some of you to put that in there, is that she said that she had a glance into the future. And I asked her what that meant. And she said she has a child that graduated grad school, and lived in Chicago. And then she had a senior that had graduated from college in the middle of all this last May. She said, I have both my boys home and their girlfriends are around. And I have a glance into the future of what this is going to look like when I have grandchildren and things down the road. Because she said, neither one of my boys would have been hanging out with me on my deck, dinner after dinner after dinner this summer, had there not been COVID. There's just no way they would have given me the time. Excuse me. So I like the notion of the glance into the future. And reconnecting with the great outdoors. We live in Colorado, and we are, for the most part, very fortunate with that sunshine that comes out every day in our weather, and we are outside. But we have all, that one I feel very comfortable by doing a inclusive, that we have all reconnected with the great outdoors, because that is how we are surviving right now. Getting outside, being with other people outside. Excuse me. That's an individual gain. As I take this sip of water, I would love for somebody to throw in, and I could put that pressure on the panelists to talk about what some other individual gains have been.
Well, I
Okay.
agree with you, Rachel. I love your list of individual gains as well as the more public gains. And I typed in the chat some of the gains that we've had as a family. I have a question for you.
Sure.
I know in some of the groups that I've been in virtually in the last 8 months, that people are concerned about weighing or comparing their individual losses against community losses. And how would you help people get a grip on that, or a feeling that they don't need to be judged as dealing with their own personal loss, which in comparison to the larger losses going on is relative and is still kept in perspective as being smaller, but for that individual, it's still a loss and a challenge.
So thank you for interacting. And I started off by talking about individual and public games because it is such a messy division. Because even though you are as a public community, when it comes to like Cherry Creek school districts, you are still individuals within that community. So we can't help but bring our own personal perspectives to this. And the thing that I am working on personally so much through the actually support of some of my presentations and my family and the couple of different jobs that I'm doing is that if there's 99% of the people that are following the process, making you feel good, why do we turn to that 1% that sets you off, that 1% that says something, does something, behaves in a certain way, and we don't see the other 99% of the people that are doing and working and leaving out judgment and helping out and doing so many other things. So I just want to just share that with you, is that how do you do an individual and how do you do let's say a group or a public or a community? How do you separate that? Some of it is that we just have to not share as much. I know that sounds terrible, but I think sometimes when we overshare, we are showing some things that are happening in our household that are different than the way they're being interpreted. So keep your circle of who you're sharing with. And this helps with, I know I could see that I've got a question about judgment. This helps with judgment as well, is that when you say something, like, remember I said earlier about the 80-20, people do 80% maybe that you feel that are doing around COVID are worthwhile, positive, safety, all that. And then the 20%, they might be negative towards government decisions. They may be negative towards school decisions. They might be negative towards your own personal, what you think is. Sometimes I think you need to go a little bit more into your trusted, because people these are midstream thoughts, I'm assuming that people say, because I know a lot of mine are midstream, and that they're interpreted differently because we're not the same people anymore. I have 4 sisters, and we can't Zoom anymore. We used to be able to Zoom at the beginning of this, but we can't Zoom anymore because there's judgment is happening. Well, you're doing this and you're letting your kid do this and you're having sleepovers and what are you thinking? And this one's getting together for Thanksgiving and this one's not. So I hope that helps a little bit, but you have to just be careful that in a job or in conversation that you individually feel some way, but we don't. Remember I said earlier that we don't know what happens behind someone's front door. My extended family doesn't live here. So I'm the eldest of people that I'm hanging out with besides, right now. So I don't have that same notion that I want to go see my mother on Saturday that other people do. And how do we know, right? How do we know? And there's a fear factor that is. So thank you for the question of, can you speak more about judgment? Do you have tips for how to handle being judged or how to try not to judge others? I just shared that if we can maybe just not be careful on your midstream thoughts, because midstream thoughts are very interpreted in a certain way and they hold on forever and ever and ever. So where I might have said something 3 months ago about my daughter's wanting to one of my sisters, and then 3 months later, what has changed in our world in 3 months is absolutely incredible. So what I said to her 3 months ago, she has held on forever and she is judging me now. Well, you know what? Judge me. What are you going to do about this? I'm doing this wedding outside in December. So when you ask me, how do you judge and not judge other people? My main thing is that just know that you do not have this, you have no way of knowing what happens under somebody's roof or why they're making the decisions that they're making. And you cannot compare yourself to them now or ever, and vice versa. So when somebody is at you being in your face about whatever it is that you're choosing to do about your life right now for these last 10 months and going forward, somehow put a little bit of plexiglass around you. And I say plexiglass because glass is breakable. Just put some kind of plexiglass around you. So when they say to you, why, how, it's up to you to decide how you're going to react to it. They get to say whatever they want, but it's up to you to how you're going to react to it. Because if you emotionally react to what somebody says to you, what's going to happen? They're going to go home or they're going to get off the phone and they're going to say, they're not even going to think about it again. You're the one that's going to spend the next 24, 48 hours thinking about it. And who loses that in that equation? You, not them. They said their piece. I was on a business call yesterday and somebody said something to me about a life choice that I make. And I was like, I got off the phone. I'm like, was she really talking to me like that? Like she wants me to help her with a project. That's not a behavior I had before. It's because we're becoming so judgmental. We're just beat up. We're tired. We want it to go away. We want our lives back. So I think we react emotionally to things that are said to us because we're not as solid inside as we used to be. We're a little bit off. We're a little bit on edge. And things like traffic on I-25, we would all do anything to have that back again, rather than, just some of the life that we could expect and things that would happen. So thank you for the question. And I just want to say is to put a little bit of plexiglass around you when people say something. Think of the 99% of the people that are very nice to you and that 1% of the person that says something to you that turns you off or sets you off. Just think about it. It is such a small percentage, and the only person who's losing that with that reaction is you. And as far as judging others, we don't know. We do not know what they're doing and why they're doing. So the only control that you have is of yourself. So just remember that forever, that you only have, judgment of you. I hope that helps. I'm going to keep an eye on the time. Okay, so this actually is a good time to say it, is believe in yourself. If cauliflower can become pizza, you could do anything. Who would have ever thought that cauliflower would become pizza? I mean, come on, it doesn't even taste good to me, like cardboard, but anything is possible. If somebody told you that we're shutting school down across the nation and kids are going to learn from home, if somebody told you that on January 1, you would have said, what are they smoking? Like, what are they thinking? This will never happen. So I'm just saying, is there's so much in our never say never about anything. And that might become a motto that we need to just live by. So I want you to I want to make sure before you walk away is that you think about creating your own tool, your own personal toolkit. So when you have the opportunity, when you have a setback, or even if okay, you wake up one morning and you say to me, you know what, I am not going to be sad today. I'm going to figure this out. Explore and adopt new routines and adjustments. Figure out how to do that. In my household, I know I've talked a lot about me. This is where I have struggled with not having an audience, is that it didn't work at first. These routines, the dog needed to be out, food in the refrigerator, who ate when. We had to adopt a new routine. Breakfast and lunch, everybody's on their own. We come together for dinner and everybody participates. We were texting within the same household, yet we were in the rooms next door to each other. Explore and adopt new routines and just adjust to it. Set personal, work, and family boundaries. I mean, those lines are so blurred right now that we don't have personal. For all of you on this call, how many times a day do you say, I just want 3 minutes to myself, right? But we need to learn how to take those 3 minutes to ourselves. We need to create a personal toolkit that gives you boundaries of your personal, your work, and your family responsibilities. Define your self-care program, whatever it is: exercise, fresh air, eating right. Maybe it's reading more. Maybe it is just, interacting more with a friend or a family member, just something that makes you feel good and loved and happy and just self-fulfilling. Develop a personal growth plan. What does it look like? You're not traveling anymore. Maybe you need to do something, do it. Maybe you need to take on a different career path. Develop a family plan. Without organized sports, just you got to do something different. You got to feel something different. And I think a gift, I was riding my bike on Cherry Creek bike path in the summer, and once the water calmed down from the snow runoff, there were kids playing with their parents and building stuff inside the creek. And I was thinking to myself, this would never happen if there was organized sports was still going on. And so that's why I wanted to share that with you, is that what if we looked at it a little bit differently and we just said, you know what, we are so fortunate. Let's develop a new family plan. Maybe we can't go on vacation, but what can we do to come up with a family plan that people are excited about, they look forward to? Maybe it's making ice cream and creating a sundae bar, probably a kind of a weird suggestion on a snowy, cold day, but come up with a family plan. I need to go back for a minute because I was asked, what are your ideas for specifics for a self-care plan? As I shared earlier, well, some of it is athletic, it's like some kind of movement, it doesn't have to be athletic, but like whether it's a walk or whether it's just some kind of, what I call it is a transition. When you get outside and go for a walk around the block and you get some fresh air and you just see other things besides your four walls, that just gives you a different perspective and it kind of just relaxes you a little bit. Self-care program can be a form of meditation, yoga, time by yourself, those types of things. Eating right, being able to say no, being able to manage your time, being able to say, my electronic is off at 9 o'clock, no matter what, whatever it is, but your self-care program that you feel good about your day. Whether it's giving a half hour to read, maybe it, excuse me, as I said earlier, to reach out to a family member and spend some time with them. But when I say define your self-care program, what is it that's going to make you feel more relaxed, more connected, and just be a part of you, right? And then implement personal, family, and work adjustments. we're working hard on that. Everybody is. Getting that homework done at night, I just can't imagine what it's like. Coming up on finals right now, what that's going to look like. But there's got to be a work adjustment, and you can't just say, I'm going to do this. You have to get everybody involved. My husband said to me in the first, like, once I got better, and I finally went out again, he said to me, it's just amazing. I think the refrigerator is being loaded and unloaded from the back. And it just cracked me up, because for him, he was saying it just shows up. And I was saying to him, how the hell do you think it shows up? So those are just adjustments to understand that it's not what it used to be. The piles of laundry are different. The work requirements. I mean, unfortunately, now that some of us are working from home, our coworkers, managers, bosses, whatever you want to call them, parents of students, think that we're accessible 24/7, but we're not, and nor should we be. So that's what I'm saying. When you create your toolbox, you create your timeline of what your availability is. One of the things that I'm struggling with personally is just some empathy. I just think a lot of people have empathy, and I think we've grown to learn more about empathy. But I think as this goes on, we're getting a little less empathy from each other, because we're just so burnt out. And the word kindness and being nice and things that are said to each other to me, are harmful. I get that there's two sides to the story always, but if we could come somewhere in the middle, so I'm asking you to reach outside of your bubble and build some empathy towards others that don't have what you have, others that have different circumstances, and really towards yourself. And that just because this is the way you've always done something, try to reach out of it a little bit and see if you could do it slightly differently. Create a plan to adjust to your new normal. We don't have our new normal defined yet. So I'm kind of being careful to just say that we're going to adjust to it. So your new normal right now is for today. Tomorrow might be different. I mean, we might get some lockdowns for the holidays. We might get some openings up for the holidays, but create your plan to adjust to your new normal. I received so many emails yesterday and from people that I work with about Thanksgiving, and how the new traditions that were created. I got things like people said, I never touched a turkey before, and now I have. And, maybe that I will change is that I won't spend my weekend traveling as much on Thanksgiving, and I'll do something different. So creating a plan to adjust to your new normal, whether it's, like I said, going for a walk in the afternoon, something that you never did. You've got to, if you're working, educating kids, doing everything at home, maybe your new normal plan is that you have to figure out how your house becomes the office, the school, and where you live. So adjusting to it all so it doesn't feel so overwhelming, and learn to compromise. That might be along with the word judgment. Compromise might be my other word that I've been working on this year for personal growth and personal understanding, is that I need to compromise. I can't do what I want to do. I so badly want to visit with some people. I so badly want to get on a plane and go, I so badly want to get my mother-in-law out of jail, I call it. There's so many things that I want to do that I want everybody to come to my daughter's wedding. There's so much that I want, and yet I can't have it all. And so could I whine about it, or do I learn to compromise and say what I do have? My 89-year-old mother-in-law will now FaceTime with me. Would she have done that before? Probably not. That we just have to compromise. And, to all of you, sometimes compromising is perceived to be negative. And I just want you to say that it's not. I would like to suggest online classes. There are a lot of free online classes, from arts and crafts to the science of happiness, from a Yale professor. Thank you so much, Trish, because that is exactly, as I said earlier, there is more virtual material online now than there ever will be. I shared with you that I went to EMT school. I have no desire to be an EMT, but all I want to do is help people right now, and they're short with medical. So I can go in as an EMT. So Trish, you're spot on, because it wasn't free though. I wish it was. I took the class online for most of the summer, and it gave me such empowerment, such emotional gain. And you know what else it did? it filled my brain and heart with so much new knowledge that I didn't dwell on what I didn't have. I only dwelled on what I can have. So thank you, Trish, because it's true that there's so much out there. And I know some of us don't want to be at our computers all day, but I've signed up for this lecture series. And you know what I do? I don't watch them. I just kind of cook with them. So that instead of cooking and thinking that I am just dwelling in my own life right now, I just have my computer open and I listen to the lecture, and it just gets you out of your head, so to speak. And I know sometimes it's good to be in your head. I just saw that your hand is up. Would you be willing to put your question in Q&A? I don't know. I'll let you guys handle that. I'm going to keep going. And then my 2021, here it is, you guys. So I didn't know how to writing going into the future. So I said 2021, this is what I would love for you to take away with you today, is create and use your personal toolkit. I gave you all ideas, but do me a favor. Please, please, please create something. Whether you put 10 things on it and only implement 2, that's better than 0. So go for it. The second one, next thing is to list your personal gains. I think if you just sat down in whatever, go for a walk, talking to a friend, being with your family at the dinner table tonight, and listening what your personal gains are going forward. As I shared with you, the ideas around me compromising, the ideas around me just not being less judgmental, the ideas around me learning how to relax a little bit more and not be running haggard all over. Those are my gains that I'm taking forward. I would love for you guys, instead of, you could call them resolutions for 2021, but I would like you to look at it as what really is personal to you, not to society, but to you. Relax anxiety in areas that you cannot control. I started off by telling you it's not, not that I want it this way, but we don't have control over what happens to us. What we do have control over is what we do with what happens to us. So, relax some of that anxiety. We cannot change this. Adapt to the changes. There are not organized sports right now. You cannot go to the NFL locker room. There are, you can't go to the grocery store without precautions. Adapt to the changes that happen around you. I mean, Peloton didn't increase by 5,000% without this. I mean, it happened because the gyms closed. So people adapted to finding a way to work out. So adapt to the changes that you have. Try to get out of the emotional sadness that you have to do it. Nobody wants to do it, but try to adapt to it. We might learn something about yourself. Find your gratitude. I was sad about something and someone texted me for 5 days in a row. Tell me what your gratitude is today. I have such gratitude. I think you could tell it in my tone that I have gratitude, but we all sink backwards around that. And we get into that emotional, where we are emotionally, but there is so much. We are warm today. I figure everybody on this call, not everybody has an internet connection, not everybody has heat, but we do. So find the gratitude, live in the moment, accept the people around you, their body language when it's negative. Just say it's not about you, it's about them just having a bad moment. And the most important person always is you. You're more important than anybody else around you, even if you're a parent, even if you're a teacher, even if you're a caregiver for a family member. If you can't if you're not taking care of yourself and you're not on your game, it's really hard to help the people around you. So I just want to share that with you, and just take that into consideration, that the most important person is you. I think this might be, okay, this is where you're going to be, another takeaway is that what we've all planted in 2020 will come to full lush next spring. And I probably shouldn't have said full lush. I should have said just lush, because it's not all going to be, come spring, it's not going to be just perfect. But we're going to get outside again. The days are going to be long, and just keep working December, January, February, March at the goal of that next spring is going to look different than the short days of winter. And just, we're going to be able to adapt to this, whatever it looks like. I don't want to put false hope out there because I don't have it, but I just want you to know that everything that we did, those losses of 2020, they're coming into 2021. So I like to enter into a conversation with others, either in person, virtually, or via email, social media. What has been your biggest loss during this time? What has been your unanticipated silver linings to this? And what do you hope will not go back to normal. I'd love this. We have about 15 minutes. We might have even a little bit more than that. I'd love to entertain that a little bit now. I can walk out of the presentation and we can kind of open that up, or we can just do it now. Let me just finish this up and let's do that, because that way I can reshare get out of my shared screen and more of your faces will pop up. So I'm just throwing this out there because if you were in the back of the room, I would let you touch my books, but these are my 3 books. I'm not trying to sell you on anything, but I will tell you that I am on my website. I am running a special that the Finding Peace One Piece at a Time and Living with Loss. I'm packaging them with a pretty good deal, with a personal note to the recipient, whether it's you or whether it is a family member that is struggling for a little bit or doing some things. So feel free to reach out to me. My website is on the bottom. My email address is on the bottom, other than how awful my last name is to spell. My website is my name, rachelkodanaz.com. Reach out to me. Feel free to join my newsletter. I've written a bunch of blogs on things that just come to mind. I'll probably write something about our presentation today. So feel free to reach out to me at any time. Build your toolbox. I'm not going anywhere. Here's my contact information. And I am going to stop sharing my screen, and let's get some conversation going for the next 15 minutes. So I could see some of your faces now.
All right, you've got some of us from Penn board back on. So I know that there was a raised hand. Lisa Jocelyn has a raised hand. Shari, would you like to try and unmute her and she can make a comment? Just as a reminder for all of you, if you would like to make sure and get Penn's information of what our latest presentations are, when the podcast or the video of Rachel's presentation will be, please go to our website, pennccsd.com, and subscribe to our emails so that you can get the latest information that's coming down the pipe from us. But we'd like to have a little bit of conversation. It looks like, Lisa, you are able to chat if you would like to.
Lisa, I believe if you unmute yourself, you might be able to speak.
I'm not sure when she had raised her hand, so it may be that she doesn't have a question anymore.
All
Well,
right.
I wouldn't mind sharing a couple things.
Thanks, Trish.
I know, Susie, you asked, okay, so I believe you asked what was something that was a loss. And I think, like everybody else, I think the loss of social interaction was huge. However, going back to Rachel's point, the gain was finding out that I really do only want to hang out with the A people, and not necessarily quantifying them as A, B, C, or D, but recognizing who the real tribe is and who you know is going to be there for you, and who, regardless of what you do say, there is no judgment there. And not choosing to be around those people because they're not judgy, but recognizing those are the people that really fulfill my needs and what my love language is, versus, oh, just saying yes to the occasional invite to lunch or dinner or go to a party. Recognizing the people that are really important in your life. Being an introvert, I find the sort of less social stay at home really amazing for me. I haven't had to struggle other than having 2 teenagers and a husband at home. I've always worked from home, so for me, it didn't feel that much different being alone in the house. What was different was having family more involved, and again, that was something I had to adapt to. But now that we've gotten into a routine and they make their own breakfast and lunch, and we all come around at dinner time, that's been good, and that I'd like to keep going.
So thank you for sharing, Trish. And I do like what you said, and I don't know if we should call it the ABB team, but that's what we're using, and it makes sense to us. But I find some of the people that I'm letting go a little bit from right now, I think I'm going to bring them back. I'm a little struggling with their comments, and that I think that I need to do some things for myself right now. And I think that's really good for all of us to think about that, is it may not be permanent. And I need to just keep instilling that in myself, is that some different family members, that, distant family members that are making reactions to COVID, and they might be different than you, and they, might be in a different place, and somebody's in school and somebody doesn't have kids. I mean, the people that, are, they're retired and, all they want to do is travel, and that's taken away from them. And, there's different emotions around that, and they might come back, but for now, it's okay to say, let's keep this bubble. It's about you waking up every day without a pit in your stomach. So it's, or even sleeping at night, right? When you're sad, you can't even sleep at night. So just to say that it's okay for now, that this is where I am. It's okay. So my daughter, it's been a hard couple months for her with trying to plan a wedding, and her fiance challenged her that she has to read X amount of books a month. And it's really worked, because she gets into bed, instead of dwelling over all that's going on and what can go on and what the government changes are going to be, she falls asleep with a book. I never would have thought of that. I mean, I could tell you to read, but I never challenge someone that says, I'm racing you on how many books, that it has to be X amount of pages. I think it's adorable. Those are a little bit of gifts. So thank you, Trish, that you put things into perspective. What else do we got? A couple more. We're gonna, before we have to hang up. I know everyone's hanging on, so that means that they're looking for a little bit more information. I don't know if this is a Q&A. I'm gonna look at it.
I would just
Lisa.
like to make a plug for your books, because
thank you.
I benefited from them, and I gave them as well as gifts. And so I think they're so real. They're super easy to read on topics that are not what we would think of easy, light reading. Let's pick up this book before we go to bed and have good dreams. But they're very positive books. And I just gave the Living with Loss One Day at a Time to a very good friend whose 1 year anniversary of her husband's death is on Friday. And she has written a few times and said, thank you so much for that book. I know that if I can't do anything else, I can at least read the one page for that day. And a lot of times I can do it. And so I know that there's people who have had so many different losses. If we go back to that, one of those first slides, and the losses come in different flavors and packages. So consider that. And also, I love the Finding Peace, one tangible piece at a time. As my husband is downstairs going through the basement saying, why do we still have this stuff? And I did to my parents' house earlier during the normal part of 2020, where I look and go, why do you still have this stuff? What do we do? I don't want to deal with this, right now, or next year, or whenever I have to deal with it. Let's try and figure out what's valuable, what has meaning. And so it just gives you a way to think about the stuff in your life. And I think one of the bonuses of being in our houses, I don't know about you guys, but I'm looking around my house going, why is this here? Why is this on my shelf? Mm-hmm. Who hid this, and what purpose does it have? So some of you know that my middle daughter went to, oh, I'm going to have to sign off because you don't want to hear that.
Well, she signed off. I'll just talk for a second. thank you so much for the plug. And really, if you can't tell, I'm pretty current and relevant in my presentations, and I try not to dwell on things that happen. Although, believe me, I'm just like you. There's a lot of days that I can't get out of bed, and I'll tell you, you can stay in bed if you want to stay in bed, because we all deserve that too. There's nothing better than pajamas and a big cover over us when we're not feeling great. So I do appreciate the plug, and as I said, you get the discount of the two together, and I'll write a note. It's available on any online store too, whether it's Amazon, Barnes and Noble, or Tattered Cover. I like to use Tattered Cover too. But I just want to share that I'm honored that you spent the morning with me, and I just reach out to me, because sometimes it's hard to ask questions when you know the people that are on the call with you and you don't feel comfortable with it. Just reach out to me. I love the interaction, and I welcome the interaction. Is your dog done barking? It's all yours.
Yes, somebody came to the door to pick up some toys that had never been used that are now going to
See?
someone else.
Finding peace. You're finding peace with those items. It's lovely.
I think my husband's finding more peace.
That's okay. He's in your family.
But I was going to say, my daughter went to Columbia on a Fulbright and returned, and as she was packing her suitcases, she kept going through every item, and she said, because with borders being closed, she had packed her suitcase numerous times. So she went through her suitcase numerous times and said, why am I keeping this? Why am I holding on to this? What am I doing? And so in between time of not knowing if she was going, what her plans were, being totally in flux, she went through her room. Why am I keeping these items? What am I doing with them? Why do I need to hold on to this to remember a certain part of my time? And this isn't something that you talked about so much today, but it's in the book, Finding Peace, One Piece at a Time. And I think it's such a valuable way that we can spend our times that's actually very life-giving. And I think that during this time of our worlds kind of becoming a little smaller, we need to surround our homes with things that are life-giving. Mm-hmm. And one way we can do that is with the things that we see and we touch and we clean or we move. And another way, like you had recommended in your creating the personal toolkit, is defining your self-care plan. And I work in home health, and I was talking with a nurse that I work with who cares for a very severely compromised little guy that we both share. And she has made her world very small so that his risks are limited. And that's a very gracious act on her part. Mm-hmm. But I asked her, what are you doing to take care of yourself? And she really was kind of surprised by that question and confused, actually. So I just would like to encourage all of you, moms who have little people at home, even those of us who have big people, find those things that actually give you joy, the things that you spend 5 minutes doing, half an hour doing, and you just feel like you can breathe a little bit easier. Brainstorm, ask other people, create a text, or however you communicate best with your A-team people, and entrust yourselves to them to just say, how do you find ways to keep your sanity, to be a little stronger at the end of the day, to sleep better at night? And I just encourage you, as December gets underway and we have so many emotions going on, and we might be thinking more of the losses, that we find ways to just continue to create that silver lining and look for that silver lining.
Thank you.
Well, if nobody else has anything to add, let's get to work on creating our personal toolkit. And Penn will be sending you an email about a special opportunity that's coming up on December 8th in the evening, and how you can participate in that. So make sure you have subscribed to our emails so you can get that information. If you would like to share Rachel's ideas with someone else in your house, know that the video will be available probably no later than tomorrow. And, you know, it would be a great opportunity for you to sit, maybe even with your kids, and then put Rachel on pause for a few minutes and say, oh, okay, let's come up with our self-care as the 15-year-old son and the 9-year-old daughter and the kid home from college, and your husband and your friend, and maybe you have your mom or whoever there with you. And let's do this together, and let's actually create some conversations that are meaningful and enriching to your relationships. So I inherited a dog. That's one of the bonuses. I inherited 2 dogs for this month. So I'm going to close this out so you don't hear all of that chaos. And if you have any questions, just email us at pencccsd@gmail.com, and we will get to you with an answer right away. We look forward to seeing you in January, and we're talking to Rachel to see if she wants to come back on January 12th in the evening. But we will send that out to you via email, and you can look at our website. So happy holidays to all of you. Happy December. Stay warm and look for your silver linings.
Thank you. Thanks for joining me this morning.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you.